The September issue of Exceptional Parent magazine focuses on the elderly and those who care for them. Sign up for free and read it today at www.epmagazine.com.
Hi, baby. I'm back. You see, I am the replacer. I replace you so you can play Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Really good.
Where's Dad?
I'm your daddy now.
Oh. Hello, Daddy.
I like that.
Mittens is stuck again.
Mittens, you did this to yourself.
Sir, can you please just unlock the doors?
Just give me 5 stars. Now get the hell out of my car. Tacos, anyone? No! Blessings and gifts for all.
Your Holiness!
Kiss your own baby, lady. Bim, 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 bless. Call of Duty Black Ops is back.
Oscar Mike Radio is a proud podcast partner of Reach Across America Radio, heard every Thursday at 11 a.m. and Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern. They're also big supporters of the nonprofit I Got Your Six, 2 Lives at Once. And with every wreath you sponsor through Oscar Mike Radio, $5 goes back to this great organization dedicated to making a difference in the lives of veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, and first responders battling PTSD. 2 Lives at Once pairs these brave men and women together with dogs rescued from kill shelters. In this way, 2 lives are saved at the same time by saving each other. Donate now. Go to reachacrossamerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio to help. That's reachacrossamerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio.
Suicide is preventable, and each of us has a role to play in suicide prevention. Suicide is complex. There is no single cause, and it's not always a mental health issue. It could be loss of a job or home, financial or relationship issues, pain, or leaving the military. Suicide does not discriminate. It affects all ages, races, and genders, veterans or not. If you know a veteran who is struggling, connect with them. Let them know help is available. There is quick and easy access to services in times of crisis. Dial 988, then press 1. Talking about it is okay. Don't keep it inside. Don't be ashamed. Don't wait. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Hello and welcome again to Oscar Mike Radio. My name is Travis, Marine Corps veteran and your host. Oscar Mike Radio is part of the Hubazoo Network. You can find out more on hubazoo.com. I want to thank my sponsors, Joyce Asek of Asek Real Estate, Mark Holmes of Reapers Detailing and Power Washing, and my supporters, Travis Arnold of Cason Shaving Company, U.S. Army veteran, and Faye Simon, editor-in-chief of Exceptional Parent Magazine. Thank you all very much. We're back. It's Veterans Day week. It's one of my favorite weeks out of the year. And if you're watching, you might recognize one of my guests above me. I'm not going to try to point where he is right now. I'm pleased to have Steven Vincent from TIAG, along with his colleague Caitlin, join us here on Oscar Mike Radio, kind of a part 2 or maybe a bonus or just macro. I don't care, but more is always more with me. This is the year of relationships, and I just like the way the last conversation went. So we want to kind of flush this out. And we're talking about a veterans topic that is important to all veterans because we all get out and we all have to rebuild our lives. And the transition to another career is very important. And Stephen and Caitlin have a very interesting perspective and story around that. Both of you, welcome to Oscar Mike Radio.
Thanks, Rob.
So we got the skinny on you last time, sir. We're going to start off with Caitlin Yelinek from TIAG. And, you know, this is the first part of this arc. We talk about the civilian aspect of this. And Caitlin, it's a pleasure to have you. Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and then what you do for TIAG, please?
Awesome. No, thank you so much, Travis. It's a pleasure to be here. So my background is actually coming from the hospitality sector. That's what I studied in college. I went to Penn State University, and through networking, I found an opportunity in my senior year in the DC metro area working for a government contractor in the HR field. I had not been exposed to government contracting. I hadn't even grown up in a military family or really knew of much military families or veterans in my community in northern New Jersey growing up. Mostly it was financial services, pharmaceuticals, some logistics and travel. So for me, moving to the DC market through this internship opportunity opened my eyes to just this whole other world, really. And so I started in government contracting about 15 years ago, and I haven't looked back. And really that is because I've seen so much value, not only in the mission that organizations like TIAG and other government contractors have to serving our nation, but also just working alongside colleagues and peers who are veterans, military spouses, military families, and place as I've progressed in my career. So I started in HR as a coordinator. I went into recruiting, and then ultimately now what my role is, Travis, at TIAG is talent management. So working not only on the talent acquisition side of new joiners to the organization, but the career growth, succession planning, supporting, the learning and development and the continuation of somebody's career at TIAG and in this space of government contracting.
Fantastic, fantastic. You know, sir, last time we talked about, your, career in the Navy. And, I think as we found out, the fact that you put mints on Marine's pillow was like a pinnacle achievement of your time. You know, but kind of remind people, who you are and what you did in naval service. And I like the shirt, even though I'm a Marine. I mean, that's awesome.
Well, remember the Marine Corps is part of the Department of the Navy. So
I know.
Travis, thanks for having me back. I enjoyed the conversation last time. So Steve Vincent, so 25 years Navy. One of those guys that went into the Navy for what I thought was going to be 2 years that turned into 25. I had command of an amphibious ship. Most of my career was in the amphibious community, working with Marines. And again, I'll give you a hard time any day of the week, but absolutely loved the professionalism, the can-do spirit, just some great lifelong friends from the Marine Corps. Very different cultures that, again, coexisted in service of a larger goal. Transitioned in 2012 and had a tough time in transition. Went from being a senior officer where kind of maybe assumed a little too much about what would be there for me as a civilian hire, because I just brought so much to the table. Who wouldn't want to hire me? Went through that tough learning curve. Learned some things about transition that I have enjoyed being able to give back. Was lucky enough, and again, we back to networking. Through some persistence, found a company that was the right fit for me, and I've been with TIG now for 12 years.
So it can kind of work, you all, and this is just the coolest part. To break it down is we have today the civilian perspective and the military perspective. Steve, you're getting out of the military as a, 06, right?
Correct.
So, no slouch, high performer, highly driven. And then we have Caitlin here who has to create a program to take that experience in and make sure that the company and the veteran get value. This is rare. This is great. I like the fact that we did this. But seriously though, I'll start with you, Caitlin. What is your perspective when you started dipping your toe into the military side of talent acquisition? Because even today, with all the programs out there, it's still like how do we do this? A lot of times is what I hear from fellow civilian, employers like yourself.
Yeah, so I think it's overwhelming when you start to dip your toe and you realize there are a lot of programs out there. That's wonderful. I think for many years, we've been on this mission to support veteran hiring, support military families, and a mission is wonderful. Branding around it is wonderful, but action is what's important. And so taking action can be the hardest step, and where to start can almost create analysis paralysis. I think we're all familiar with that sometimes. So I think if you're in my position, 8.5 years ago, I started at TIAG. And when I started, the military programs, the veterans hiring was an immediate focus for me, for my team. So where did I start in that? It was overwhelming. There's so many resources. And so I can speak to that briefly. Step one there are utilizing the leaders and the veterans that already exist in your organization, like for me, Steve, to find out what is their story, what worked for them, what resources and connections do they have? Because connections are really, everything for getting started to take action. Second to that, it's evaluating what is out there and determining based on the organization's goals and values, in 6 months, what do we want to achieve with this? In 12 months, in 18 months, what do we want to achieve? Is it a metric on how many veterans we have in the organization? Is it a metric on retention for veterans? Like, what are those goals? Finding the partnerships or the organizations that really will help you meet those goals. So that is definitely a practice that I did 8.5 years ago, with support from the leadership at TIAG, with support from people like Steve, to figure that out. And on the flip side, what I would say is for a transitioning service member, I'll even speak a little bit to military spouses, just because TIAG invests a lot of time there too in the military community. I would say that it's very similar. There's an overwhelming abundance of resources, but where do you begin? I think it's evaluating your personal goals. Is it going from service to furthering your education? Is it reskilling? Or is it the desire or the need to land a job immediately? And so getting really clear on those goals will then help as you see what resources are out there. Where should you align yourself? Where should you partner? The one thing I would caution, and I'm a firm believer in this, is you can only utilize a tool or a partnership or a resource to the level of bandwidth you have to utilize it. So getting out there and attending, 3 networking events a week with all these, attendees and handing out business cards, as we've talked about, Travis, like that can be overwhelming, and that might not be where someone's bandwidth is. So understanding how much time and energy you have to give to this search, to this process, is also very important to get clear on early on. And it's not the quantity, it's the quality of those interactions, of those, partnerships. And I'll reverse that back from the organizational perspective. At TIAG, we're a mid-sized company. I have a small team of recruiters. I have really great support, again, from people like Steve, but I cannot invest time in every single veteran hiring partnership that's out there. I won't get value. I won't get ROI out of that. So early on, I had to spend time evaluating and measuring what partnerships may bring to meet our goals, and then deciding to focus on 2 or 3 of those. And now 8 years later, those partnerships have added so much value to our process, to our hiring, to our retention. But it all takes getting very clear, at the beginning, because it can be so overwhelming.
Fantastic. And I want to dig into the partnership side of it because, like I told Steve when we first talked, the theme for this year in Oscar Mike Radio is the power of relationships and embracing that power. Steve, on your side, you started working at TIAG, and Caitlin approaches you and starts wanting to ask you questions. What was going through your mind when she's starting to ask you about your experience and how TIAG could improve or really build a good foundation for what they do for veterans now?
Some of that was, well, let's start with being thrilled that someone asked.
Yeah.
And that it wasn't just a, check in the block program. But it came from a place of, because I related the story about, Neil Lambton and how he reached out to me. It was clear to me from the beginning that this was a company that valued veterans. So being thrilled to be asked, but then, again, it was an opportunity to share some of my struggle, share some of what I had learned, because again, I'm just me, it's just my experience, but a lot of what I went through is not uncommon. There's lessons to be learned there. And so, again, Caitlin, as she said, has not gone through veteran transition. So being able to articulate some of that from my perspective, I think sometimes helps inform people that have good intentions, but don't have that experience and want to benefit from that. And that might shape a program. In some cases, I may have encountered a good transition program that I felt was good. So as Caitlin is looking at, hey, I've got 100 to choose from, but I got bandwidth for 5, sometimes I think it was, hey, Caitlin, I think this is a good one. I see them out on the deck plates at an installation, and I think they're doing good things and they're helping people, and that it's not just some corporation going, yeah, we've given money to veterans so that we can put that on a banner. What are the actual programs that are useful and valuable and showing value? And so I think giving her some feedback on that, pardon me, but then carry it forward. So when we started doing some things like, say, a veteran brown bag, I had, there was an organization called 4Block that this is before the pandemic and things kind of got derailed then, but I would often go to that organization and the first night up for a cohort, I would talk about military culture. And so the opportunity with a veteran brown bag to kind of have that conversation. And frankly, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm talking to other veterans, they know this, they've been through this. I'm not going to tell them anything they don't know. But it always surprised me how many people, either during the brown bag, veterans in the company that I didn't know personally, they're across the country, they're on a different role. How many of them would say something in a veteran brown bag for, oh, yeah, I had that happen too, or I struggled with this, or reach out to me offline and say, hey, thank you for sharing that, because I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one that struggled with trying to understand that or figure that out. And then to me, the highlight was when we had what we call commitment managers, people that may or may not have a military background, but they have a leadership role on a contract, a management role on a contract, and having them reach out and go, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I hadn't thought of that. Just maybe something as simple as me. I think I told you last time, I remember having my commitment manager a week or 2 after I got hired, came by my desk. I'm brand new on contract, trying not to look like an idiot. Hey, Steve, I need your PTO plan. You bet, Don. What the hell is PTO? I had no idea what it was. I had to go Google it. Oh, that's what we call leave in the military. But I didn't want to look stupid. And so again, just that stress of even just the vernacular and having a commitment manager understand that, this individual, they want to make a good impression. They don't want to look stupid. And they're going through some significant cultural and vocabulary change, and be aware of that. And,
Well, one thing that I'm hearing from both of you, you don't realize you're saying it, is there's a level of trust between the employee and you, Caitlin, and there was trust between both of you at that time to start building this program. And no relationship works without trust. So, one of you take this. How do you convey trust? Like, hey, you're not just a checkbox for some federal form for reporting. I'm actually invested in your career, and vice versa. Okay, how I'm gonna, come and bring the best I have because I feel the company cares about me. That's a cultural decision very early. How did that come together?
I mean, I could take it, Steve,
Sure.
and
Sure.
so I really think that comes with authentic leadership. And I think that is one of the backbones of TIAG's culture. The ability to be inquisitive and ask questions and take feedback and have that full feedback loop is another part of TIAG's culture. Steve joined TIAG before my time, before we had any talent acquisition program. So Steve joined TIAG and speaks highly about TIAG and the leadership who took a chance on him, even well before we had a formal talent acquisition department, before we had any formalized programs. And so doesn't take the programs to build that trust or have those authentic conversations. It really starts with the leadership, and that's just cultivated through TIG's culture, and it trickles down. So that's a leaning from the top, and then how you grow from there. So when I joined, there were a few barriers even before I joined TIG. I was actually very intimidated by this job. I was going to be the first person leading a talent acquisition and recruiting function here. It was the Wild West before I joined, a good Wild West, because we acquired wonderful people like Steve and many others, but there was no process. There was a little bit of assimilation challenges. We weren't doing the best to work on retention and things like that. And so when I joined, I was intimidated. It was a big job to take on, and I actually really didn't want it at first because it was scary to me. And whole other conversation I could talk about. I'm a proponent of do it scared, but the biggest thing that I heard from leadership, from the CEO at the time of TIAG, was, I understand that this intimidates you, but you will have a safety net above you, below you, and to the side of you. And something in those words, and the fact that it came from the top leader of the organization, made me say, okay, I'll do it. And I have never felt anything but those words here. There are challenging times. We have obstacles, but much like Steve's story, while I'm not a veteran, I came into something new and untouched and untapped. And what we've been able to create is definitely because of the trust, the authenticity, the feedback, the security, that safety net.
Yeah.
That is something special. Now, I would love if other organizations would embrace that mindset too. I think it would make all of this easier. But that is definitely something we have here that is a little bit more unique, and why I think we thrive with our veteran and military culture and employment.
I'm going to build off of that real quick.
Yeah,
to
sure.
say that veterans make up a big part of our workforce, but what Caitlin just described is not a caring that is only applied to that group. It's a caring that's applied across the workforce. And we have a veteran affinity group where we have focused on that, but it's not the only group that is highlighted or championed. So, to me, it's not necessarily because the organization has championed veterans, it's because it's championed people. And the veterans happen to be a big portion of that.
So it really is, people first.
It-
Troop,
it- you know,
troop
I-
welfare, mission accomplishments.
Yeah, I think so, and I will tell you that, I had some large consulting firms that recruited me as I was in transition. And as I talked to them about, what will I be doing? Well, there were some clear answers there. But then when you ask the question about, so where do I go from there? What's next? What's my growth potential? What else would I be doing? And I would often kind of get the blank stare, and it became clear to me that for that particular organization, the value I offered them was my Rolodex, and I had about a 2-year lifespan. And when I had my conversation with TIAG, it was, we're interested in you. You have value. We have challenges in supporting our customers that we think you are going to help with. And it's not a one and done opportunity. I'm not going to hire you for the duration of this contract and then throw you away. You have value. And again, I've been with the company 12 years now. I'm in my 6th or 7th distinctly different role. And in each case, I was nudged outside my comfort zone. Hey, we'd like you to take on this challenge because we see you have the innate ability to solve this new challenge that we as a company need solved, and so forth. Contrast that with so many other companies where if you want to move to something different, you have to submit an application. You have to compete for that job. As opposed to, I think I like what I like about our size and the focus on people is, hey, that person can do something more, and kind of nurture them and grow them into something more. And then you backfill behind them with someone else.
Yeah. So both of you talked about the fact that you have to have leadership from the corporate side, give the direction to, and the security to, succeed or fail, but the security to go out there and execute the directive of champion all people, let's say. And then we've talked about how the veteran experience has to be, willing to be adaptable and be able to interact with that kind of leadership and cooperation. But one thing I want to go back to that you touched on earlier, Caitlin, is you talked about other programs, entities that support all this work. And I don't think that gets talked about enough. So I'd really like you to kind of unpack that for me, because that's a very interesting aspect of what you all do.
Absolutely. So partnerships are really what allow us to strengthen the program with a focus on, veterans or military families. And so some of the areas that I would begin are looking at where, so I'm going to speak from the company perspective first, but then it also translates to the veterans. Where do you live? So I'm in Virginia. We're headquartered in Virginia. Virginia has valuable resources for companies and for veterans. So one of the first programs that we tapped into when I started was the Virginia Values Veterans V3 program. It's a free program. I love free. Again, when we talk about bandwidth, let's be real. Sometimes bandwidth is budget. So I say tap into the free resources first. So V3 is a wonderful program. It's run by the Virginia Department of Veteran Services, and it's an education, training, and career and employment services program for the state. So that is where I invested time and resources and knowledge to dive into what they offer. So they offer things for veterans. They offer things for employers. Something as simple as I've got 5 new positions that I'm opening. I can pass them along to my point of contact, and they will share them out, cast them out to their network of veterans who are enrolled in the program. So something as simple as that. So start with your state and your local government. In addition to that, there's really wonderful programs based on the skills or career path. So I go back to work with mentors, work with transitions assistance programs to get clear on what you're looking to do. That's those translatable skills. It doesn't have to just be one path, because again, no one's path is straight, whether you're a civilian or you're a veteran. But you do need to have a starting point. You need to direct your energies to the appropriate channel. So let's say it is a understanding or an interest in technology. there are some really great programs out there for upskilling or reskilling in the technology space. So the Microsoft Software and Systems Academy, also known as MSSA, that is a program that we have worked with also for the last 8 years. It's a program that is 17 weeks full-time, provides technical training for veterans with those career skills. And so that's for transitioning service members or veterans. Really great resources preparing for careers in that space. So that's going to be more of the technology space. So we're going to, dive into industry relevant certifications. I know we've referenced that before. Dive into the pillars of technology and the hot technologies like cloud services or DevSecOps or, networking and security administration, like whatever the case may be, there's those pillars to dive into and find education and a career pathway. An organization like TIAG partners with MSSA, and we have access to those students and alumni. I've sat in on many classrooms or cohorts virtually and shared about our company, our culture, and our open jobs. So bridging that gap between a partnership where there's something for both sides to take value in, and it's even something that we can share with our employees who might be recent transition veterans, and they started in one job, but they have aspirations. They might find eligibility in programs like this.
And you all encourage that. And you all encourage that if you have a current employee and there's a program that might, lead them in a different direction, you're all for that.
Absolutely.
Oh,
So
wow.
one of our 7 commitments is a commitment to personal and professional growth. So TIAG is founded on 7 strategic commitments. It's something else that really helps guide the organization, going back to that authentic leadership. It truly is our compass. It's how decisions are made, from the business decisions, from hiring decisions to engagement, employee engagement decisions, all around this culture of commitment to ourselves, our industry, our partners, our employees, our nation, right? I mean, in what we do in this space. And the commitment to professional growth is huge, and it is true in every way, whether that be just funds to help, continuing education. And this is accessible to all, but I definitely think there's value in this for our veteran and military spouse community when you talk about upskilling or reskilling on that career trajectory, access to tuition reimbursement, certification reimbursement, even sometimes it's industry events and networking opportunities. Those are all value add as you're an employee, not just before you're an employee, So I think that's something that we invest in wholeheartedly. And there are resources out there. So.
You join TIAG, you see this come online, Steven. It has to make some of the challenges of educating that veteran, not just why TIG is a great place to work, but that professional development, aspect to have these resources available. It's got to make your life easier.
Yeah, and I'm an old dog, but they've invested in teaching me new tricks. I mean, I think it was 3 years after I was hired, I had moved to a business development role, and it's like it's not something I thought that I was going to be in. And at that point, this is 2015 timeframe, I was talking to, government leaders about cybersecurity and stuff like that. So I was like, well, you know what? I need to be smarter. So I did a graduate certificate through the University of Washington on risk management. It wasn't a highly technical program, but it was really more of, I need to better understand the vocabulary. TIG paid the bill for that. It was an investment in me, helped me be a more effective employee. I think that there's, I've seen this, and I can't name a particular person for it, but I've seen, younger folks, E4, E5 that come in and they have a specific technical skill because that's what they did in the Navy, the Air Force, whatever. And it makes them a great fit for a particular job. But you know what? That might not be what that person wants to do long term. Again, you work in this field and you understand that, you know, it's easy to get bent in cybersecurity, or you're in DevSecOps, or you're in this, but you know, you might have expertise in column A from your military time, and that makes you a good hire, but your real passion is for this. Okay. That's an opportunity to be upskilled in that and to move and grow into that. I felt that with a lot of companies I talked to, they weren't interested in anything other than that niche position that they were considering me for. And any idea of moving laterally, what are you talking about? You know, that's somebody else's business unit. I'm hiring you for here. My P&L responsibility is for this. I don't care about that. I think that there's a more holistic view with the company where, you know, I listened to some of the conversations with some of the operations directors where you have a hard charger who, you know, wants to grow, wants to do something different, is ready for another challenge, and they might get moved to a completely different contract. Oh my God, you have to give up somebody good. Nobody wants to give up somebody good, but that might be the right thing to do for that person, for the organization. You know, I'm a big fan of that. I'm going to go back to, you know, Caitlin's talking about MSSA. You know, I've been in the classroom talking culture to the students at Joint Base Lewis McChord several years ago. And one of the things that stood out to me is that I assumed before I walked into the classroom that everybody there was from a technical MOS. Not true. There were people there that had others that they didn't come from necessarily an IT background, but the focus was on your ability to learn, your critical thinking skills, you know, your passion and so forth. And there was people that were being presented an opportunity to reskill, because again, you know, go back to that young person coming into the military. They take the ASVAB and it tells them, okay, here are the things that you can do in this service. Okay, now here are the class convening dates. You might be channeled into a choice of one or two vocations when you joined the service, and that might not really be where your passion is. You know, I remember talking to a young boiler technician working in the engine room who wanted to be a cook. That's what he wanted to do when he got out. There wasn't really an opportunity for me to reskill him on the ship, but when he got out, that's what he wanted to do. His easiest fit would have been to do what he did in the Navy, but he made a career change. God bless him. He knew what he wanted to do. You know, back to something Caitlin said earlier. What do you want to do? That takes networking, that takes engagement, that takes some self-reflection. What do I want to do and how do I get there? And if MSSA is the program, great. If I have been hired by TIG into role A, but my true passion is in something else, well, you know what? I've got to be able to articulate that and trust that my leader isn't going to kick me to the curb because they might interpret that as I'm not happy in this new role. No, they recognize that, oh, I've got more talent, I've got more potential, and communicate across the organization. Reach out to Caitlin. Caitlin, I've got this hard charger that really wants to do this. Is there a spot for them that we can move them into and grow them? I know I went all over the place on you there, Travis.
It's all right. It's all right. But it would suggest that, you know, not all companies are like TIAG, obviously, but it definitely, I get a sense that the hierarchy is not flat at TIAG, but the peer-to-peer relationships are flat. You mentioned several times you talked to Caitlin. You mentioned several times that you can talk to somebody else in a different department. And, you know, why is it? Because when you bring somebody in, Caitlin, there's a cost. There's a cost to bring them in. There's a cost to stand them up. You have to do a lead time that, you know, it's going to be X number of weeks, months before they really get rolling and, you know, you get your ROI realized. So why have you all taken that approach? Because some companies are like, hey, I hired you for this peg. You're the round peg going into this hole, and I have no interest in retooling you for another place in my company. Do your job, go home, take your check, and be happy. So this again is a seems like a cultural decision that you all have made. I'm just curious why.
I mean, I think it's simple. I think the million-dollar question of organizations now, right, in 2024 is, what do our employees want and how do we keep them engaged? And it's not just money. You know, you can read any report. It's not about money. It's about value. It's about feeling like they have ownership in their career. It's about flexibility. It's about accommodating their needs in the season of life that they're in right now. So we're ahead of our time on that with our, focus and true passion for internal moves and career progression at the organization. And so that's why, because our employees deserve the opportunities to grow with the organization. And so while it may provide an inconvenience in the moment to move somebody on to their next opportunity, we would rather invest in the person and deal with the recruitment, and the backfill, so to speak, on the other side. And our customers see that, our employees see that. And so that's a value out of the organization. I would say that our highest source of hire for new positions, new work being brought to the organization, in this last year is our internal moves. So an internal resource more often than not this year is filling a new effort. And what that shows to those customers, those, government clients for us, is that we're giving you the best of the best, because we're going to take a resource that's trained up in many different skill areas, oftentimes subject matter experts on different things, who also understands and lives and breathes the culture and will take care of you. We're placing that person with this new customer. And we talked about trust. That's how you continue to build trust. And then we have this awesome privilege of bringing new talent into the organization then. So we don't think of it as an inconvenience or a burden. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to hire a veteran, hire a military spouse, tap into our employee referral network. That's huge for us. And so I think with that mindset, that's what's only helped bolster up our program of internal moves, because across the organization, we have that mindset. Steve referenced our operations directors. We have a wonderful team of leaders in a very flat feeling organization, Travis, where we all work together. So there are like needs or turnover or, new work pending, and our teams speak to one another. We don't live in silos here. And so those opportunities for conversation and collaboration allow to share about talent that we have, share about people's interests. And that really also helps to foster that culture of internal movement and growth versus a butt in a seat to fit the problem X. And let's forget about the problem Y. We'll deal with that another time. That's not how we think.
So, Steve, you're kind of on both sides of this coin. You're an intermediary between the someone like Caitlin to the veteran. How do you see TIAG growing with this mindset? Not that you haven't grown, but you're answering a question that some companies spend a lot of money, time, and effort just trying to launch.
How do you grow? Making sure I understand the question. How do you grow it?
How do you continue to grow with what you already have?
I think it is, I think it's continuing to hire and promote like-minded leaders who aren't not just for the technical, but Caitlin said something, which one of you said something earlier about taking a chance on me. And I think that as we grow, the way you perpetuate that and the way that you instill it and make it grow is by looking for that type of leader, the leadership that we have on our team, nurturing that type of culture so that it is just the way we do business and not something you turn off and on. Travis, a step back real quick. I've been, a lot of what I do is around our first responder mental health and wellness product, and that has me at large law enforcement conferences. And over the last couple of years, with the challenges in hiring and retention in the law enforcement community, there has been a lot more focus on culture. So I have been at presentations, ballroom full of law enforcement leaders, and they're wrestling with exactly this question: how do I sustain and grow this kind of culture? And what stuns me are the number of people that seem to be there looking for a checklist. They're looking for a quick fix. They're looking for, what is that program that I can go and implement so I can have a good culture, and that will then improve my retention and attrition numbers. And what they just don't get is it's something that takes time. It's something that requires feeding and watering over a sustained time. And that requires committed leaders. So committed leaders that then look for those attributes in other leaders that they want to grow in the organization, bring into the organization, because they see those same qualities in them, and they're going to perpetuate the good culture. And that culture isn't something that's a program. It's not something that's checking the block. It's how you treat people. And that sometimes takes a little bit more effort to do it right. But when you do it right, there's a payoff. When you either don't care about it or you try to do it on the cheap, you're just sabotaging your long-term investment. Long answer, but you're used to that from me.
Well, I like it from you, and certainly we all responded very well the last time you spoke, and hopefully you'll come on again. But let's talk about leadership, because not only are relationships and networking something that you have articulated very well, Caitlin, but Steven, you have an experience of leadership, and you led in the Navy. You worked with Caitlin, but still somebody at the very top said, "Hey, this is how it's going to be. This is the standard for my company. This is how I want it to go." And you all executed. So, and I'm not saying that not all companies are like that, but it's not as blatant, for lack of a better term, as it is with TIAG. So talk to me about the senior person in charge.
I mean, I can start, Travis.
Sure.
I mean, I think the first thing I would say is the mindset here is not that it's my organization, it's our organization.
Okay.
When I talk to candidates, I describe TIAG as a very entrepreneurial spirited company. And that is true because everyone does have a voice and has the opportunity to share feedback and ideas. I don't mean entrepreneurial solely in the sense of everyone has the chance to go out there and grow the business. That's actually true. But it's truly like thought leadership and feedback. And back to a point you made earlier about this is not always easy. Obtaining and maintaining a culture like this is not easy. It's not, and it takes some tough conversations, and it takes a leader willing to listen, and that's what we have at TIAG. And so our leadership fosters a place where that entrepreneurial mindset and spirit of thought and feedback is valued, encouraged. And so I would challenge any organization that's struggling with this, cultivating a good culture. Listen, pause, take some tough conversations, take it to heart, and lead that way. And it's an organization, of course, we need to be successful. There's a bottom line, we need to be able to pay our employees and thrive. But if that's the sole focus, then you're going to miss the mark on everything else. And so I think that is what I think adds value to the organization from a leadership and our most senior leader perspective.
Yeah. I think for me that, I work in an area where the bottom line is the only important thing, not in my company, but other companies in my industry. It's the shareholder, it's the stock price that supersedes everything else. So it really is no focus on the person that is helping you get there. And so you all kind of struck out, and I because this is not common. Like, I don't hear this when I go to certain other, events and talk about how to be successful. This is not mentioned. Like, in fact, you know, there's several big time entrepreneurs that we all know that have big names that don't talk like this. But it also goes back to something that, I learned in the military. Steven's very familiar with this, is, mission accomplishment and troop welfare. And my captain said if he had his way, he'd put the troop welfare first to get the mission done. And those officers that, actually cared about us as Marines got a lot more out of us than those that didn't. And it's just very interesting to me how a company founded by a civilian, crewed by, a lot of civilians, got this right.
Well, and let me go back real quick and say that one of our co-founders is retired as an Army 06 medical officer. So kind of came, one of the company's co-founders, Fred Goringer, came with kind of that military culture mindset. The cadre of leadership that is in place now, they aren't military veterans, but have over time, I think, very much very aware of the value of the military culture, the value of the military employee, and that it isn't just, hey, here's a means to an end to have good employees. It's we appreciate what they bring and they are good employees. And again, to me, you said something a moment ago that I go back to. Yeah, Caitlin said we are a for-profit company. But in my, in my BD role, business development role, if I do the right thing, presented with a challenge, doing the right thing is never the wrong thing. It's not, my first question isn't what generates most profit. My question is, what is the right thing to do for the customer, for the client, for the employee, for me? What's the right thing? And that moral compass usually is pretty spot on. And again, I go back to it, that military person that's innate with them. I remember being in settings where people said, well, how do you teach ethics? What do you mean, how do you teach ethics? I mean, you get to a point where it's either right or wrong, and and I think that if that kind of culture is fostered, people are doing the right thing for the right reasons. That leads to growth, that leads to revenue, that leads to happy customers, that leads to happy employees.
Caitlin, I'm a veteran. I've been out for a little while and I want to apply for your company, or I'm just off the boat and trying to get a job. What are some things that you see us veterans do that we could do better when we're trying to figure out our professional transition into the civilian world? Because we kind of talked about, I'm not really a networking fan, but you were kind of emphatic that I should change my mindset.
Well, hopefully we'll debunk some of that. So I think here's my first tip. Everyone can't be a project manager. I find many veterans that I meet say, I want to be a project manager.
No, you don't.
What does that mean? You're right. I think it's a title that translates to, I was a leader here, in this battalion or this combat zone. I want to manage. I want to be a project manager. Okay. That's frustrating and challenging for recruitment or an HR person that's trying to have this conversation. So that goes back to taking some time to translate your interests into either some role ideas or some skill areas. I love a good old LinkedIn or Indeed search, putting in some of the key skills that you have or that you're interested in, start generating some job titles. Start seeing what is out there that might be translatable. Now, someone like myself or the recruiters on my team, we're more than happy to have that intro or exploratory conversation with you, Travis, to just hear your story, take a look at your resume as you have it today, and start doing some of that with you. But not all recruiters are going to do that. So
I was going to say, I mean, what?
Find your connections, mentors, peers who are going to start having those conversations with you. So when we talk about networking, I want to go back to that for a second. Networking does not actually have to mean going to an event and handing out 200 business cards.
What?
In this day and age, in 2024, you don't even have to leave your computer to network. So I would encourage you, Travis, and others to figure out what your networking style is. You may find that you thrive in a Zoom environment. And so use the folks you have, the connectors, find the connectors. Myself and Steve, we're connectors. I welcome anyone reach out to us. We can probably connect you within 24 hours to somebody to network with over a Zoom chat. That's just what we do. We have a passion for that. So find the connectors like Steve and I to leverage if you're not the person that's going to go out to those events weekly. You don't have to, but you do have to utilize what's available to you and your relationships. So networking really is about building relationships and connections more than handing out 200 business cards. That is because aligning with the right person that can help you scour Indeed, that can help you rework your resume. Those are the people, those are the relationships that are investing in you and want to see you succeed and find your foot in the door in the right and appropriate organization. So that's where I would spend the time. You don't have to go to any more events, Travis. You're good.
Travis, what I would offer to you is that I think people underuse LinkedIn. They tend to think that LinkedIn is Facebook for grown-ups, that I can connect with somebody and I can post something good about myself. When I think I told you last time that, every large metropolitan area, every state has got 100 best companies to work for. So, when you if there's a company that interests you, you can plug the name of that company in the search bar, plug your geographic location or the location you're interested in, and whatever service you're from the Army, plug Army in. You're going to find anybody that has those in their profile, those keywords in their profile. And you go down and you start to, oh, wait a minute, we served in the same unit, 10 years apart, but we served in the same unit. Now I've got an opening line in my 300 characters for my LinkedIn invite. I can say, I would like to connect with you. Don't just do the I want to connect. I want to connect with you. I'm in transition from the Army. I see you successfully transition and work with company X. I would like to learn more. And, I would say that a good 40 to 50% of those accepted. And many times the response was, I'd love to talk to you, but I think you should talk to this person who is our, leads our military affinity group or runs our corp. But you don't know, again, I go back to you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So reaching out, I mean, you just based on our conversation with you, I bet I could go into LinkedIn and I could plug in Boston, DevSecOps, Marine, and I would find you on the list of returns. If I'm in the Boston area and I'm interested in a DevSecOps career, I don't know anything about you. I don't know anything about your company, but I've now got a starting point to reach out to you and say, Travis, I'm coming up on transition. Looks like you did it successfully. Can I talk to you? And you're probably gonna say yes. And you're probably going to connect that person to somebody else. And then again, the conversations keep going. Go have a cup of coffee with that person and talk to them and pick their brain. It's not a job interview, but you also need to do that well before your transition date.
Well, I think for both of you, the person, because this is veteran agnostic here, it's anybody.
Oh yeah.
I'm hearing you have to take charge.
Mhm.
with what
Action.
work, yeah, action, and imperfect action now beats perfect action later, which I love, but you have to take action. To your point, Stephen, you just can't put your resume or build your LinkedIn saying, "Hi, I'm a veteran, hire me," and get 15,000 hits. It's just not going to work that way.
Well, and there's simple things you can do. I'll tell you some of the things I did, and they may not work for everybody. I thought I might be interested in a particular, again, I had been commanding officer of a warship. All right, well, I wasn't going to go to the cruise industry. I wasn't going to go to the merchant marine. I needed to figure out where I could work and keep my feet dry and where I fit. And so, I would go to, I'm in the Seattle, Washington area. I would go to, hey, that looks like an interesting career field. And what are the professional associations? Hey, you can go to those events and go to a dinner, maybe pay a few bucks for the dinner. Many times they want to grow their memberships. And many times you can go for free and learn about that organization. I'm going to get seated at a table. The person on my left, the person on my right, I got to talk to them. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do this? How do I learn more about your career field? Can I come talk to you? Is there somebody, again, it's not being passive. You can go to many times just look for what are the expos, what are the conventions, and walk through and talk to the people. What do you guys do?
Yeah.
Again, it takes effort. It takes being proactive, but you can either just kind of throw a bunch of applications out, throw your resume out, and hope somebody hires you, and it's going to be some money. But if you really want to find some satisfaction, if you really want to make your own way, it takes effort. And networking can be everything from a LinkedIn search to the Zoom meetings to go to a local meeting for, professional association X to find out more about what they do and how you make that transition. And if you ask the question, I'm sure you're going to find somebody in the room who's a military veteran who knows what it's like to be in your shoes, and you're going to have a second conversation.
Yeah, I have a really good example of putting all things into action, Travis. So there's another great program out there, DoD Skill Bridge.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so that program, it aims to help service members get work experience before they separate.
Yep.
So it's actually paid through the Department of Defense. And there's eligibility requirements for Skill Bridge service members, but definitely something that folks should take a look into. So let's say that's what somebody does. They enroll in Skill Bridge and they're getting these work hours, before they transition. They're in an apprenticeship or an internship and they're just riding that out. That's not enough, most likely, because actually, like, unemployment is low. People are getting jobs. People are putting themselves out there. So what are you going to do to put yourself out there and differentiate? And it's not enough just to go through the program. So while you're in that program, be using your network and what you're learning, it doesn't matter what the skill is. You could be in a hospitality program or you could be in a technology program. It doesn't matter, but start leveraging those fields, those networks to build relationships. And so that actually happened for us. There was somebody who was going through a Skill Bridge program, but actively was connecting over LinkedIn and made its way all the way to one of my recruiters. So, we follow through with any referral that comes through, any outreach. We really try to, actively respond to those inquiries. And so she had a conversation with this gentleman who was going through Skill Bridge, had a little bit more time before he was going to be eligible for, a full-time hire. But started the conversation, took action, reached out over LinkedIn. We all had a conversation and aligned it so that that person's training in the program was able to be applied to an internship, basically, with TIAG on one of our customer sites. And then ultimately, that person's actually gone on to flourish at a very rapid pace. They're not with TIAG any longer. They're actually in a really great position. So we were a really good connector, a really good bridge for them. And that's what these experiences are all about. But it wasn't just sitting back in a program. Programs are great, but it's taking that next step of action to be networking or building relationships while in the program. So it really is a multifaceted approach. Just like anyone, just like I am so passionate about working with college students, Travis. So I have these same conversations with, graduating seniors. It's not enough to just apply. It's not enough just to enroll in a transition assistance program. You have to set yourself above the rest. There's a wonderful podcaster speaker who talks about most people don't. His name is Bart Berkey. I've heard him speak, seen him speak, and I love it because most people don't ... do a lot of things. Most people aren't going to send that LinkedIn connection with the additional context. Most people aren't going to shake
Oops,
your
sorry,
hand.
I didn't. I just connected with you, Caitlin. I didn't send any additional context.
Oh, sorry.
Let it all out. Well, I'm guilty of that, Caitlin. I just sent you the connection and didn't send any context. My bad.
Oh, you just did. So most people don't do a lot of these extra things, Travis. And I think that if there's a veteran or a transitioning service member or a military spouse out there that feels like they're hitting a wall with the search, take a look at what you're doing and consider some different actions. Build the relationships with the connectors. I encourage outreach, to myself or to Steve, because that's what we're here for, bridging that gap. It's not enough just to enroll. You've got to take that extra step.
Time flies when we're having fun, and I really have enjoyed the different perspectives right here in front of me. But that leads me to my last question is, whether you're a veteran or, even civilian. I mean, I would hope civilians will look at this and say, what, if this is what they do for veterans, what can they do for my career? How can people connect with TIAG in the best manner possible? Or, take advantage of some of the resources you all have to put themselves in place for employment?
I'll let Caitlin take that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would encourage people to go to TIAG.net. You can check out our careers page, but I would say that it's not always about the open positions. Connect with TIAG on LinkedIn, follow me, send outreach, share interest, just reach out and start building those relationships with our organization. Follow the events that we have going on, follow the initiatives that we have going on, maybe in the community. We would love to connect with anybody and start building that relationship. And I would encourage that not just for our company, but if there are other companies where you feel you align with their culture and their mission, do the same thing and start building that network.
And Travis, what I would add is whether they reach out to Caitlin through the TIG careers page, whether they reach out to me on LinkedIn, again, it's building that relationship. I think that there's plenty of small businesses out there that might not have a position posted, but when they find someone that they think is a good fit culturally, they keep them in mind. Or there's a position that might even, hey, we have the opportunity to create a position because we want that person on the team. So it's that when you do that networking and you present not what your resume says, but who you are, and have that personal connection, you make that organization interested in you. And memorable people, when you make yourself memorable, when you show that you are interested, that's remembered. And I'm willing to venture that Caitlin has probably had some superb military candidates come her way that we did not have a spot for, but she's got a heck of a network with people that do the same job that she does with other organizations. And I'm willing to bet that she's passed more than a few of those along to other people, and some of those have come her way.
Absolutely. Well, again, I just, glad we were able to connect again for a part 2. In the interest of full disclosure, Steven and I connected on LinkedIn. That's how we started talking with each other, and we kind of went back and forth and felt each other out. But I was, again, very interested in, how you all approached talent acquisition, the place for veterans, because it's still being people are still trying to build it today. And Caitlin, you know, hey folks, I've been saying all along, there are civilians out there that if you meet them halfway, will advocate for veterans, you know, with everything they have. And it's nice getting that civilian perspective from the corporate level. Caitlin, I want to thank you for sharing with us. So any closing thoughts or words before we go mission in flight?
I'll say this, thanks for doing this. Thanks for, this takes effort, this takes time. Again, I think that there are some wonderful programs out there, but as engaged as you are, I think you've learned a couple new programs or learned about some new opportunities that you can then share with your network.
For sure.
I think the biggest thing that I like about military transition is that there is again, it's that one team, one fight mentality. You know, somebody may come to me that isn't a fit for TIG, and the easy answer is to say, sorry, we don't have anything. But with a little bit of effort, I can connect them to somebody else that might be a better fit, or at least keeps them moving forward. And that's easy to do. And, you know, it's not that I'm unlikely to do it for a non-military person, but I've been in that military transition person's shoes. I know how hard it is. And when someone makes the effort, you try to make that a good use of their time and meet them where they are and help them move on. And that's kind of a military culture thing that I think is unique.
Thank you.
And I would just add that I would encourage organizations, no matter the size, small or large, to take a step in the direction of aligning with some of these partners that we've talked about, or partners local to the organization. I think there is a misunderstanding that to have a successful military hiring program, you have to be one of the large organizations with a ton of money to invest in it. There are so many free resources out there for partnership. And if you get clear on those goals, you know, the military hiring goals or retention goals, and seek out a program that aligns with those, an organization can have a lot of success in bolstering their veteran hiring and their veteran retention. And that's a really great starting point.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, again, you know, Steven, Caitlin, I just want to appreciate your time today. I look forward to having you back, because I don't think this is the last time. We need to, not, I want to, of course, but I think it's neat. The message needs to be driven home about what you as a business owner or in the corporate executive structure can do, not just for people, but for veterans and vice versa. So again, I want to thank you for your time. This is dropping on what I call Veterans Day week, and I couldn't think of a more appropriate topic. Thank you both.
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
Well, again, thank you for all for listening and watching. This is Travis with Oscar Mike Radio, and as we always say, we are mission in flight.
Remember, Honor teaches our mission. We care about it, we do it every day. But I think there are things that just hit you and give you a reason to go on. The theme for our 2024 for Reach Across America is Live with Purpose. It just seemed to fit in with the vows of the REAP, the 10 attributes that we feel represent our United States military. I thought, what a great opportunity to put those two things together and show our kids through how we act some of the things that can make their lives better, their communities better, and by doing that, the country better. For me, Live with Purpose, I think, is it's a mindset. Set some guidelines and then go out and purposefully make life different, make a change. It's an opportunity to set an example.
Thank you for listening and watching Oscar Mike Radio, where our active duty service members and veterans are in action and the mission is in flight. Oscar Mike Radio is an oversized load Co-Sinista One production. If you are a veteran or know a veteran who needs help, please dial 988 and press 1 for the Veterans Crisis Line.